Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday, January 15th. I'm back with another reaction video. I said I wasn't going to do one today, but I woke up and I'm like, I got plenty of time before church this morning. I'm going to go ahead and or something like that. Hollywood's fat phobia problem. So this should be very, very interesting. If you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button down below. I greatly appreciate it. It is awesome. So thank you very much to those of you who support my channel. So what's coming up soon is I'm going to do some videos on the pros and cons of keto and other types of diet. I'm still working on creating an Instagram and a Twitter account. You guys have been asking for that. You've also been asking for ways that you can donate to the channel. So I'm going to create some kind of cash app or something like that. I'm also going to put that link down below. And we are working on a Patreon type system and maybe some merchandise that we can sell. So it's all being worked out right now. So thank you very much to everybody who keeps wanting me to create different accounts and social media and stuff like that, and you really want to support the channel. Thank you. So let's get right into this right now.
Once upon a time, I used to love amusement parks. The funnel cake, the gravitron, the smell of grease, and the sound of delighted screams.
Well, we all know you love the smell of grease, that's for sure. You probably coat it on your body every night before you go to bed.
Screams whooshing past me at 70 miles an hour. As a young actress, there was no better job.
All right, that was mean. I'm sorry. I'm usually not that mean, but I can just tell already that this person is going to be a piece of work.
That I could imagine than being cast as a princess at Disney World. Can you imagine being covered in tulle and rhinestones while screaming your face off on Space Mountain during your lunch break? That was my ultimate fantasy. So when
That wasn't my ultimate fantasy, but I can't tell you what that was.
I learned that my college was doing sponsored internships to Disney World, I leapt at the opportunity to finally audition for Cinderella. But, as it probably won't surprise you, I never even made it past the admission paperwork. After all, to be a princess, you had to look like a princess.
So on the paperwork, did it say you must weigh X amount of weight before you could audition for this role? Maybe you could have played the teacup or something. I don't know.
I was too fat to ride this ride. My name is Jen Ponton, and honestly, I'm always a little nervous to tell people that I'm an actress. I am acutely aware of how the world perceives my body, and for a long time, how I perceived it. I had eating disorders my entire young life. I was on diets and punitive exercise regimens, but no matter what I did, my body stubbornly insisted on staying plus size.
Really? I mean, I understand being a kid and being forced to try to lose weight. I was forced to ride an exercise bike. I was forced to take diet pills. There was this one, I forgot what it was called, but it sort of like lets fat pass through your system, and so you're just going to the bathroom all the time. I know my grandma, when I was younger, tried to get me to eat cabbage soup and stay on a cabbage soup diet, and that's all I could eat. So there were attempts by people in my life to keep me skinny, but I just sort of rose above that and kept getting bigger. But I didn't try to lose weight. I didn't really realize there was anything wrong with me, and I think that same thing is true with her. She probably didn't think there was anything wrong with her. Her body that's saying, no, screw that. You're trying to lose weight. You're eating the right amount of calories. You're eating the right food. You're exercising all the time. But we're just going to keep holding. Try to just be honest with yourself for a moment.
The teen thrill of shopping for a prom dress ended in tears on the Macy's dressing room floor. Boys would make bets over who would dance with me at middle school socials. And as a die-hard Muppet enthusiast, I was always torn between love and revulsion over my... So as a theater major and soon-to-be unemployed actress in an unwanted body, I wanted something seemingly impossible: to be a leading lady, to see stories that we've never seen, to see fat women striving for something other than weight loss, to see fat women succeeding, to see fat women romanced and deliciously sexually owning their bodies. I want to see fat women in politics, in medicine, in outer space.
Really? Oh man, this lady is delusional. I can understand having a dream and wanting to do something. I've had dreams that didn't work out. But the fat actresses out there, overweight actresses, who are succeeding in Hollywood right now, like Melissa McCarthy. I love her so much. She's so funny. There are many other, Jennifer Coolidge, she's overweight. And so there are plenty of women in Hollywood who are making it and are successful. But when you talk about you want to see women, fat women in space, like there's a reason why astronauts are incredibly in shape. And to say that it's NASA's problem that there aren't fat women in space is just totally stupid. They go through rigorous training. They have to be in shape because in order to blast off into space, they don't want to put an extra booster rocket on there just to carry your fat butt up into space, all right? They can't afford that, but also just the amount of sheer pressure on your body as you're being blasted off is, you know, it puts a lot of strain on the body. And being up in space that whole time, not even gravity is going to be able to hold you down, all right? So there's tight squeezes. So should NASA really like create a brand new space station where there's wider doors and everything else just to accommodate bigger people? Like that's just absolutely ridiculous. There are some industries where bigger people do not thrive in. And I've told you guys about my experiences trying to find a job where, you know, I tried to work at a Meijer store, which is a big superstore kind of center here in the Midwest. And so the hiring manager, when I went in for an interview, he walked me around because he didn't think that I could handle doing the job. And he was right because I was out of breath just walking around the store once. But I'd have to spend an 8-hour shift walking around the store, working fast, doing my job. So he didn't think that I could handle that work. So I didn't get that job. Like, that's the reality of being overweight. There are consequences for being overweight. And that's what I'm trying to tell people with this channel. Some people don't get it. I get a lot of backlash for the things that I say about obesity. But I don't care. There are consequences in the world for being obese. Health consequences, social consequences. And you're not going to be able to do the things that you want to do. If you want to be a leading lady in Hollywood, lose your weight. If you want to go into space, you got to be in shape. Like, those are things that you have to figure out. And again, when I said that if you want to be a leading lady, lose weight, you don't have to lose weight. You just got to be a good actress because there are overweight women in Hollywood. That's what she does not understand. Instead of changing herself and thinking maybe I should be healthy, maybe I should lose the weight, maybe I should change my mindset about this, she wants changing, especially their pedophilia. And there's a lot of discussing this in Hollywood, but this is not one of them. Like, if you have a set type role that you want somebody in and she's a normal sized woman, you're not going to hire a bigger woman. That's just the way it is. You're not going to change Hollywood to do what you want it to do.
Because such profound visibility is important. When we see our bodies so insidiously ignored on screen, we see fat bodies medically abused.
Unprotected by legislation? So what, you want to make it some kind of a law that big women can become actresses in Hollywood? Like, you want to force that on the industry with legislation? Like, there's already a law against discrimination, and a lot of that has to do with disability and stuff like that too. You're not allowed to discriminate. But you want to take that the next step? You want to force people to hire you? And abused by the medical. A lot of science and research that proves that obesity has health risks associated with it. Maybe not right away at her age. She looks like she's younger, maybe in her 20s. But as you get older, there are definite health risks associated with obesity. And so the fact that science tries to tell you that you need to lose weight, that you need to get healthy, you're not going to change proven medical science to fit your narrative. You're just not going to be able to do that. You care about feelings over facts. And instead of changing, you want to change medical field. You want to change society. You want to get the politicians involved in changing things for you. To think you can be a Disney princess, you can be whoever you want to be. There's things I wanted to be, things I wanted to do. I just wasn't bright enough, right? Wasn't good enough at math. Or I said in the chat last night, I think that, if I had a choice, what I wanted to do was either become an astronomer or an archaeologist. Like, I really loved those two fields when I was growing up. And I later became gifted at writing, and I wanted to be an author. I wanted to be like Stephen King. But I wasn't good at math, and so I was never any of those science field people. And I did publish some books, but yeah, it just never worked out in terms of me being like Stephen King. Astronomer field, and say, even though I'm bad at math, you need to accept me as a leading astronomer because that's my dream, and you have to accept me even though I'm not good at math and I could barely multiply. I don't even know how to divide anymore. Like simple numbers I can, but it's been 20 years since I've been in school, but I don't care. Make me an astronomer and your leading guy because that's what I was born to be, because that's what I've wanted to be my whole life. It's stupid.
We see a world reflected back at us that says, you don't even deserve basic care.
Really? I receive above average care, even though I'm on Medicaid right now. I have doctors who take good care of me. I get regular checkups and EKGs and dietitian help. I've been to the doctor twice since my weight loss surgery, and they've checked up on me, and they want to do blood tests and everything else. I get above average care. What are you saying you don't even get good care because you're overweight? Oh, let me see. Your doctor told you need to lose weight, so you think that all doctors are crazy and nuts, and they'll listen to your doctor instead of just ignoring them because you think you're better and entitled than everybody else.
Who are you to wish for love?
So now you're going to say that people are forced to like you because I wish for love, but I'm not going to say, hey, you're fat phobic if you don't love me. Actually, I'm striving to lose weight because I think maybe I might attract somebody. Somebody might love me and fall in love with me, and I can get married to her and have kids and all these things that I dream of doing. I would never dare to force somebody to like me if they didn't like me, if they weren't attracted to me. Like, attraction is a big thing. Nobody's fat phobic if they don't like me. Again, you're trying to change the entire world, to force them to do things for you, to like you, to be attracted to you, to hire you. But you don't think you need to do any of the changing.
Fat women are sometimes lovingly called Rubenesque, as a nod to the Baroque artists who painted fuller feminine bodies as divine, sensual, and worthy of being gazed upon. Well into the 1700s, fat bodies were held in high esteem.
Well, they kind of still are today in some ways. I don't think guys are as treated that way, but I think women are. There are lots of guys out there who like big women. Lots of them. There aren't too many women out there that like big guys. I mean, I've had some nice comments from ladies during doing these videos, women who think I'm very attractive. I wouldn't say they're feeders or anything like that, but they seem like very nice, upstanding women who, as far as I know, I've only briefly talked with them, but they find me attractive. But there's a lot of guys out there who find big women attractive. A lot more than there are women who find big guys attractive.
So what happened? Much as it has ruined literally every other good thing in the world, blame the transatlantic slave trade.
Is that always the excuse for things? It's slavery. It all goes back to slavery. Everything is racist now. If I don't like something, if something discriminates against me, even something as mundane as weight loss or obesity, oh, it goes back to racism. It's always about racism. We can call things racist because when we can do that, then we can shut it down, and people don't have to live by the BMI chart anymore because it's racist.
Dr. Sabrina Strings examines this critical connection in her book, Fearing the Black Body, The Racial Origins of Fat Phobia. As Protestant colonizers poured into Africa, so did their infamous Protestant ethic. Hard work, self-denial, the mortification of the flesh, all ideas to kill off bodily sins by abstaining from pleasure. By contrast, these colonizers noticed that African culture was full of the divinity of pleasure, food, sex, and earthly delights.
You wouldn't think that was a part of European culture? Excuse me, but that was a huge part of European culture. That wasn't just the African culture. Even though a lot of these people who are colonizers might have been religious, especially the Puritans who first came to the United States, but many of the people weren't religious. I mean, there were a lot of people who escaped Europe because of religious persecution and stuff like that, but fat, voluptuous bodies were praised back then because it was a sign that you were wealthy or you were royalty. It had nothing to do with racism. It had nothing to do with being white. It meant that you had some money, that you were maybe a lord or a lady, or you owned some property, you had some farms, you were rich. And they didn't go to Africa and say, oh, look at it, they love sex, they love pleasure, they love food. Let's outlaw all of this. Let's make it bad for people. No, that's not what happened. That stuff was still going on in Europe. All the royalty lived like that. They slept with everybody that they could, sex everywhere, orgies everywhere, food everywhere. Like that was a part of European culture as well. But if you were poor and you worked hard, maybe you were a husband and a wife team and you had some kids, like people back then had some kids. Like we're talking lots of kids to help out with the farm. So sex and pleasure and food, like that was all part of the culture back then too, unless you were poor. And I'm sure there were plenty of poor people in Africa who were struggling as well. Because we see that today. Did Africa do a complete reverse of how it was a few hundred years ago? No. There were poor people and rich people in Africa, just like there was poor people and rich people in Europe. So the culture was the same. The whole hedonism was the same. But you just want to find a reason to blame so-called fat phobia on racism so that you can make the BMI chart racist. It's stupid.
For a while, skin color alone was enough for the colonizers to distinguish between who was enslaved and who was free. But as interracial babies were born, there was a need to redefine those racial categories. And the colonizers looked to the Africans' perceived love of sensuality and lack of self-control. If black women were having more sex, eating more food, they must inherently weigh more and carry more venereal disease.
Really, you think black women were having more sex than European men and women? Really? You really think that's true? That there was no sex going on with white people? They didn't care about pleasure, they didn't care about sex, they didn't care about food. You really think that? Even as slavery continued on, you think that the black people who were slaves had more food, had more sex, had more stuff? Really? You would think that the Europeans, the white people who had all the money, who had all the access to the sex and the hedonism, would have been more prevalent within that community than the black community. But again, you're trying to destroy white people and lift up black people by saying, oh, they were just wonderful and they were hedonistic and they had all this sex and pleasure and they were amazing. There was nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But all this Puritan idea of white people who just tried to hate on black people because they were sensuous, it's just stupid. I understand there was a lot of hate for black people back then. I'm not saying there was no racism, there was no slavery. I'm not saying that at all. But this idea that modern ideas of health and weight loss and the BMI chart and all that stuff is racist because it goes back hundreds of years to when white men hated black women for being sensuous and being big is just stupid. There's no real connection there. There's real science connecting obesity to health issues. And so all we're saying is you need to be prepared for that, and you should be healthy. Because by the time you hit your 30s and your 40s, you're going to be feeling this obesity. It's going to ruin you to your core if you don't stop right now. She doesn't see that yet because she's still young. She just sees that, oh, everybody's against me because I'm fat. I can't get a job. I can't get this. I don't feel loved. The whole medical community is against me. And, oh, it's just everybody else needs to change. Society needs to change. I'm perfect. I'm fine. There's nothing wrong with me. It's everybody else. But I'm telling you, when she gets older and her knees start hurting and her back starts hurting and she starts getting diabetes and all kinds of health issues, she's going to change her mind.
Thereby ensuring that they did not deserve to be free. Such grotesque objectification and dehumanization of black female bodies led to the horrific story of the Hottentot Venus. Saartjie Baartman was a woman enslaved as a sideshow, somehow both prized and reviled for her lush, thick figure. Race science used her body as proof that blackness, and by proxy fatness, was innately savage and unevolved.
Fatness had nothing to do with blackness. It wasn't combined like that. There was fatness within the European community. Again, if you were rich, if you had property, if you were a king or a lord or anything like that, you were probably overweight because you had access to greater amounts of food. It wasn't blackness equals obesity, and so now today we hate obesity because black people were obese as if white people weren't obese. It permeates every single culture. There were obese people in Asia. There are sumo wrestlers and stuff. There are overweight people in India. Like, it's a part of every culture. It has more to do with diet than it has anything to do with the culture. Well, I guess culture kind of is now in the United States. Our eating, the way that we eat and have fast food everywhere, and that's just how we live. That's connected. Our culture is connected to obesity that way, but it has to do with diet, not race. You are a white woman, and we're saying you need to be healthy. It has nothing to do with racism because you're white. If it was all about racism, then there'd be no problems hiring you or loving you or anything else like that. It would just be fat black women. That would be it. But you're saying it's racist even though we're holding you to the same standards, even though they held me to the same standards, and I'm a white guy. Again, I'm not saying there wasn't any racism and dehumanization going on of black people, because there absolutely was. It was disgusting. It was an evil stain on our country, on our world. But slavery wasn't just a problem with the Africans. Slavery has been throughout our entire history, entire culture, going back since the beginning of time. Every culture has been enslaved at some point. The Vikings owned slaves. The Chinese owned slaves. The Indians owned slaves. White people owned white people as slaves. The Irish were slaves. There were so many different people who were enslaved, not just the black people. But somehow it's wrong and racist to say, oh, there were other slaves. Only black people can be slaves. We only hate fat people because we enslaved fat black people back then. No, that's not true. You're just doing a revisionist history right now to turn something that opposes you into racism, or to make it racist, so that it's easier for you to hate it.
Fast forward.
Sorry for my rants. I might not have even made sense back then. I don't know. I'm just frustrated with this whole idea. It's stupid.
To now. Slenderness became a way for white Christians to separate themselves as much as possible from the instincts of black people.
That's not true at all. They were fat white people back then.
The racial, religious roots of fat phobia predated any medical concern by over 100 years.
Okay, so now we have a reason for that. There is a medical concern for it. There is a medical concern for obesity. Because a lot of the same social and physical consequences of being obese were still alive back then. They still happened. You were able to do less. You had diseases, you had problems, you had situations. You weren't able to work in the field all day. But if you were big, again, it's most likely because you were rich. You didn't have to work. So it wasn't so much of a problem back then. But still, there were consequences for it, just like there are consequences for it today. And medical concerns as science developed really back that up.
Flash forward, and those same colonizers founded a deeply racially inequitable country where fatness has been pathologized, dehumanized, and punished at every turn, especially in the media. Turn on your televisions and you will find unscripted shows like The Biggest Loser or My 600-Pound Life, televised masochistic freak shows that demean and monstrify fat bodies.
You know, we've talked about it on this channel that there are some moments on the show that dehumanize people on My 600-Pound Life or stuff like that, but they absolutely choose to be on that show. The people on that show, for the most part, get on it and move to Houston because they want to do the work and try to lose weight. Many of them fail. Even at the beginning of the show, it says there's less than a 5% chance of success. And that really drives and motivates me because I know that I have a 5% chance of getting all this weight off and being healthy. But I'm working hard to do it. And these videos that I'm making help me do that. But again, we're not trying to hate on people because we're racist and so we think that white women should lose weight because black women a long time ago were overweight. We're trying to tell you that food addiction is real. That there's a real connection between obesity and trauma. And that if you don't get help right now, you have a very good chance of dying early, of developing diabetes, of developing cancer. There are so many health risks associated with obesity. And so people today aren't driven by racism, they're driven by the health concerns that are real.
Fat suits take the monstrosity even further, allowing thin bodies to play fatness for a laugh. Fat Monica on Friends, the misogynoir of Norbit, Austin Powers' fat bastard, and the gut-punchiest of all, Shallow Hal, a movie where a misogynistic fat guy gets his karmic comeuppance by falling in love with renowned fat actress Gwyneth Paltrow.
Like I said before, there are plenty of overweight actresses and actors on TV. I'm trying to think of one. I can't think of her name right now. There's another guy, Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill's been overweight, and he's been a successful actor. So there's plenty of actors and actresses who have been overweight, who've made it in Hollywood, who are successful, despite their size. But because you're a failed actress, because you can't get any work, you're going to blame Hollywood as a whole.
But seriously, when actual fat white women are on screen, their plots center almost exclusively around their weight, while the thin characters get to live full, nuanced lives.
I didn't see that with any of Melissa McCarthy's movies. She's funny as heck. She's a leading lady. And her movies don't revolve around her size. If you've ever seen Gilmore Girls, Gilmore Girls is one of my favorite shows. I'm sorry, don't judge me, but on that show, she's awesome. I love her on that show. She's so funny. But she's not some big fat lady who can't whatever. She meets somebody, she meets Jackson, she gets married, she has kids. She's awesome on that show. She's a very successful, talented chef. The show doesn't revolve around her fatness. It doesn't even mention it. All of her movies, the same. She's very funny. She's a very involved character. Jennifer Coolidge, she's seen as a sumptuous woman who everybody wants to sleep with. She was Stifler's mom and everything else. Again, despite her size, she's seen as a sexual person. Nothing to do with weight. Again, you're the failed actress here. If you couldn't make it in Hollywood, it's not Hollywood's fault, and they're not discriminating against you because you're overweight. They just don't like you because you're not that good of an actress.
When fat black women are on TV, they're cast in supporting roles, only to serve as caretaker to the thin, white heroine.
No, that's not true either. I'm trying to think of her name. But she's an overweight black woman who's played in a lot of roles. She was in The Help. I forgot her name, but she has a lot of supporting roles that I've seen her in. And she's amazing in those. She was in Halloween 2, Rob Zombie's remake. She was a nurse in there, and she got brutally killed by Michael Myers. But she's played in all kinds of other movies, and she was leading lady in some of them, and she's a great actress. Had nothing to do with her size. There was not a single moment where her size became the joke or anything else like that. So there are overweight black women and overweight white women who are very successful in Hollywood. They're not the butt of the joke.
Fat white women are relegated to desexed, pathetic cat ladies who are perpetually dieting.
No, again, Jennifer Coolidge, Melissa McCarthy. That's not true what you're saying.
Fat black women, to Dr. Strings' point, are either painted as decadently sexual, inappropriate, and impulsive, or desexed and dehumanized, boxed into magical Negro and mammy tropes.
No, again, not true. I've not seen that with any of the black overweight actresses that I've ever watched. Not a single time. I'm not saying that it didn't happen. Maybe some of you can point out some movies in which that's true, but that's none that I've seen. None.
More troubling still are the abysmal statistics. According to Refinery29's oft-cited 67% project, 67% of American women are plus size. However, we only account for 1 to 2% of the imagery reflected in media. Of 30 television shows that starred women, only 3 of them were shown to be plus size. Of 33 female leads in film, only 2 of them were plus size. Female characters in film are 3 times as likely to be thin as their male counterparts. So how damaging is this erasure really? Well, an Arizona State...
It's only damaging to people like you because you can't find work. Do you think there needs to be more fat women in Hollywood because there's more larger women out there in society? So Hollywood somehow doesn't represent the amount of fatness that's in society? One, I would disprove that there are 67% of women out there are obese or overweight. I would discount that. But maybe by 5 or 10 pounds, something like that. I don't know that those numbers are true at all.
University study found fat stigma in the media to be so damaging to mental health that even a supportive, affirming social structure could not protect fat viewers from its effects.
So because there are less fat women in Hollywood, it's so damaging to the psyche. It's so horrible. It's traumatic.
Some participants even stated that they would rather die prematurely or go totally blind than to be fat. When we are not reflected.
The thing about that is once you lose your eyesight, it's gone. Whatever else she said, lose your arm or whatever, I don't remember what she said, but those are permanent things. Being obese is not permanent. You can make that change. You can focus on that. You can lose weight. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes discipline and self-control, but you can do it. If you don't want to be known as a fat actress, lose some weight. Like, what are you not getting here? Obesity is not a permanent thing. You're not focused on being an overweight person for the rest of your life unless you want to be. And that's the thing, she doesn't want to change. She thinks it's everybody else's problem. She's trying to change Hollywood. She's trying to change the social structure to fit her and her ideals. Because as a fat woman, she thinks the world should revolve around her. It's stupid.
We are implicitly not valued. Because of that colonial umbilicus to white Protestant Christianity, fatness represents profound.
As a white Protestant Christian, I say, you're an idiot. Blame it on everybody else. It's the white Christian's fault that you're overweight and not employed, that you're a failed actress. It's all these skinny people in Hollywood who don't want you to be a part of their movies. That's right, it's everybody else. But if you wanted to really be successful in Hollywood, you wanted to be an actress, you wanted to be that Cinderella, maybe you should have played the part. Because there are so many people who want to be actresses, they put the work in, right? They learn the lines, they do the study, they try to do their best to figure out a method of adopting a certain personality. They lose weight, they gain weight for roles. It's just whatever role that you're going to take on, you got to do the work. You can't just strut yourself in there or waddle your way in there if you're this lady and demand that you get the role that you want to get. And if I don't get the role that I want, even though that it's a smaller person playing the role, but I'm a big person, I demand that I get that role anyways, and Hollywood is discriminating against me if I don't get it. Anyways, if you want to watch the rest of this video, you can do it. I think I've been doing this long enough. I hope it's not like another 30-minute video, but I can't take more of this lady's crap. This is what society is becoming. All these overprivileged kids are growing up and thinking the world should revolve around them, and they're going to change society instead of adapting themselves into society. If you want to play those roles and you want to be a leading lady, then you're going to have to lose weight to adapt to those roles. Again, there are a lot of obese women in Hollywood who are successful, and men. Maybe not overwhelmingly obese. Maybe there are a lot more skinny people in Hollywood than obese. But, hey, I guess nothing's going to change for her until she decides that she wants to lose weight. She's not going to change culture. It's just not going to happen. No matter how much the fat positivity people press on, they're not going to change culture. And so they're either going to get older and get to the point where they realize, hey, maybe I should have been losing weight all those years ago, or they're just going to die. That's the way it is. Anyways, that's my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like, please leave a comment. If you disagree with me, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to chat with you. I hope you have a great rest of your day. God bless you.